world's #1 English teacher, A.J. Hogue, where A.J.'s more than 40 million students worldwide finally learn English once and for all, without the boring textbooks, classrooms, and grammar drills. Here's A.J. with a quick piece to help you learn to speak fluent English effortlessly.
I'm A.J. Hogue, the author of Effortless English, Learn to Speak English Like a Native. Join my VIP program at effortlessenglishclub.com. Commit at effortlessenglishclub.com. You will speak English fluently, speak English powerfully, speak English confidently. Speak English effortlessly when you commit, don't quit. When you join my Effortless English program, VIP program, at effortlessenglishclub.com, effortlessenglishclub.com. Today we are doing our book club, learning English with books, reading books, literature, English literature. And we are finishing another book today. We are finishing Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. The end of the book. It's not a happy ending. It's pretty depressing. He doesn't have a happy message. There's no hope. There's no white pills. None of that. But on the other hand, we do see, I think, a warning at the end of this book of what happens if you become black-pilled. Because John, kind of the most awake because he comes from outside, John is filled with despair, with hopelessness. He's completely black-pilled. Okay, and we see what happens when you become black-pilled, when you can only see the horrible evil of the society, and you're missing a path to truth and beauty and goodness. Because that's the problem with John, is he sees the truth and completely better than anybody else. He sees the ugly truth. He's totally red-pilled, but he does not see a way through. He does not see a solution. He cannot find the way to truth and beauty and goodness, to natural law. And so he loses hope completely. Sad, but let's do it, guys. Let's just do the book. We're live on YouTube today. I'll come back to the live comments. But first, let's just finish this book, shall we? All right, chapter 16. Remember, there was a riot. John and Helmholtz and Bernard were all involved in a riot. Because remember, John threw away the soma, the drugs, and all the people went crazy, and there was all this violence and fighting. So they get arrested. And then in the next two chapters, we kind of have the intellectual ending of the book, where we have a conversation between Mustafa Mond. So he's one of the world controllers, right? One of the big world controllers. And a conversation between him and also John, Helmholtz, and Bernard. They have a conversation about Brave New World. They have an argument. John arguing with Mustafa, since they have opposite viewpoints. And Mustafa Mond, the world controller, first of all, he decides what to do with Bernard and Helmholtz. He decides that they must leave London. They're going to the Falkland Islands, right? He sends them off. The Falkland Islands are off of Argentina. They're, controlled by Britain. And so kind of an exile, we say, exile. So they have to leave Brave New World off to this tiny little island. And Bernard, of course, is weak and fearful, and he's really unhappy and sad about it. But Helmholtz actually does wake up a little more, and Helmholtz is kind of calm. In fact, Helmholtz actually thinks maybe this is good. Maybe this is actually a good thing to happen. That they're not being killed, they're not being thrown in jail. They're just being sent off to this island where they will get away from Brave New World. They'll get away from the conformity where everyone must be the same. So they can have, more freedom, be more individual when they are sent to the islands. And so Helmholtz, actually, he's kind of calm about it. And he He thinks, maybe it's good. Maybe this is going to be a good thing. But Bernard, because he's kind of weak, he always reacts badly first. We'll see in the next chapter, Bernard actually does finally calm down. But his beginning reaction is, oh no. Now, the other part is they have this argument, and the argument is this. So, this is the argument of evil. We were just talking about this yesterday, that the world controller, Mond, he says that happiness and stability are the highest goals for humans. Happiness and stability. Stability means no change. No change. Everything's predictable. Comfortable and predictable. So freedom and truth are bad. Pleasure and stability are good. This is the mindset of the controllers. This is the mindset of Brave New World. So it's just a value judgment, right? This is a value judgment. It's a decision. What's more important? What is the meaning of life? What is best for people? And the Brave New World controllers, they have decided that it's pleasure and stability. More than anything, stability, which means control, right? It means they have total control over everything. Everything's predictable, right? There's nothing unknown, no surprises. Everything is going to be stable and predictable, and everybody feels good all the time. That's Brave New World. That is the mindset and the strategy of Brave New World, and Mond, the controller, explains it very logically and clearly. And he says that truth and freedom are bad because truth and freedom can create instability, which means not stable, right? If you have freedom, then you never know what might happen. With free will, with freedom, somebody might choose to do something bad. Somebody might choose make a bad decision that makes them unhappy, right? People make mistakes. All kinds of things happen. And, of course, at the top, the people at the top can't control everybody. They can't control everybody if they are free. If people are free, they might choose to do something different. And that's also the problem with truth. When people learn truth, well, then they will follow the truth. They won't follow the world controllers. They will do something different. So you can see how this is essentially an evil, you could say satanic mindset, Brave New World. Right? Because it is against truth and freedom. And, when you see certainly the teachings of the Bible, in the East and West, both the teachings of philosophy and religion, that at the center, truth and freedom, free will, are super important. Right? That, God gave humans free will, that you are free to choose. And that's why, that means, yes, you are free to choose stupid things. You are free to choose bad things. But that is the only thing that can give you meaning in your life if you have the freedom to choose. If you choose good, but you have no choice really, you're forced to do it, you're not really good, are you? And of course, truth, dharma, natural law, reality. So that's on the side of good. And the world controllers, just like we discussed yesterday, the world controllers, they have a goal. The goals sound nice, right? Happiness, pleasure, stability. That all sounds kind of nice, kind of positive. Evil always tries to sound positive. But what's the problem? The problem is the methods they use, the means, are evil. The methods are lying. The methods are deceit and lying. The methods are control and no freedom. The methods we learned before are killing people who disagree or sending them off to an island, not letting anyone choose, not letting anyone find the truth. It's evil. It is essentially evil. No amount of pleasure can change that. All right, and he also explains, Mond Mond, the world controller, explains that the best society has only a few people at the top and a lot of people underneath, right? Just a few controllers, a tiny number of controllers at the top, and then this huge group under them that are controlled. I mean, that's communism, right? That is exactly what communism is. Communism's a lie. Communism, they say everybody's equal, but of course they're always lying. That's never true. Because there's always the Communist Party rulers, leaders, are always at the top. It's a tiny, tiny number at the top that can do anything they want. And then everybody else is a slave. And this is what our world controllers want now. It doesn't matter if they're, the Western kind of cultural communist, cultural Marxist, corporate communists that we have so commonly now, or the old style communists like in Animal Farm or, I don't know, China, whatever. Another thing we see is that, and we'll see this in the next chapter, that in this kind of society, the controllers always can break the rules. The rules are only for you and me and the normal people. But the people at the top can do anything they want. He reads Shakespeare. No one else can read Shakespeare. Shakespeare is banned in Brave New World. But Mustafa can read it, and he has read it, and he actually likes Shakespeare. So they can do anything they want at the top, but everybody else cannot. Okay, in chapter 17, so Helmholtz and Bernard leave, and John stays, and he continues his argument with Mond, the controller. And they especially focus on God and the absence that Brave New World has no God. And Mond's argument about God is that, it's very materialistic. So his belief is just that God is just psychological, that the only purpose of religion, the only purpose of God is just to make people feel comfortable from suffering. That's all. Right? So he's saying people need God because they're suffering, they have problems, so they need God to make them feel better. Well, that is a very communist Marxist idea. That is what Marx taught, that God and religion are materialistic. Because, of course, Marx and communism are 100% materialistic. They have no idea of the spirit or soul or anything, just money and things. That's all. This physical world. And so Mond can't even understand the idea of God or spiritual laws or natural law. He can't understand it. To him, it's all just to make people comfortable. So he says, in Brave New World, we don't need God because everybody's comfortable. We make everybody comfortable. Everybody has pleasure. Everybody's comfortable. Everything is predictable. Right? There's no physical suffering. He says there's no suffering, but I think that's wrong. We can see that spiritually and psychologically, in fact, the people are suffering a lot. They can't handle emotions. They have no love. They're actually a great deal of suffering, but they're not aware of it. They hide it with pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. And so he says, well, everybody feels good all the time. Everyone feels good, man. It's like a hippie philosophy from the 60s. That's what if it feels good, it's okay. So Mond says, everybody feels good, so we don't need God anymore. And of course, John argues against this, and that is not what religion is. That is not what God is. And John says that, yes, part of life is suffering and fear and dealing with problems, dealing with challenges. That's how we become better. That's how we learn. That's how we grow, is through these difficulties. And John's right about all of this, of course. The only problem with John is that John focuses only on the negative. So he's kind of like like you see, it's the extreme. So John is only focusing on suffering and pain. Of course, suffering and pain are real, but they're not the only thing in life, right? It's not the only thing. The purpose of, life is not only suffering, not only to overcome pain. That's part of life, but not only. And so this is the problem with John. He's so black-pilled that he just focuses on pain and suffering and difficulty and feeling guilty about his weaknesses. And he's just so focused on just the negative black pill stuff. So he's like the total opposite. Mond is focused on just pleasure, feel good, drugs and sex and feel good and control. And John is just focused on pain and suffering and pain and suffering. He's black-pilled completely. So we get these two extremes here. So, John is correct in many ways. He is correct, but he's only partly correct. So this is the problem, you see, with the danger sometimes with red pill is that and why, like we talked about yesterday in yesterday's show, that you have to take the full red pill. Because there's kind of the first red pill where you see how terrible everything is in society. But you have to keep going. You have to take the big red pill where you also see all the beauty. You understand more about natural law and dharma, where you see far beyond just human society. And then you see, the amazingness of life, and that's more of a white pill. But John can't see it. He doesn't focus on any of that. He's right that we can become more heroic, like heroes, and strong and amazing and noble, by dealing with difficulties and overcoming pain and finding meaning even in suffering. He's right about all of that, but he doesn't actually do it himself, right? He's suffering, but he's not actually finding goodness in it. He's in pain, but he's not actually finding faith or goodness in it. He's just staying focused on the negative. So he has these nice ideas, but he's not actually doing them. All right, and so finally they just disagree and John leaves. And then finally the big depressing ending, chapter 18. First, Bernard and Helmholtz, they're getting ready to leave, to go to the Falkland Islands. And Bernard finally actually relaxes. He finally accepts. This is kind of a good ending for Bernard. Because finally, at the end, he's been fighting it, right? He's been struggling back and forth, kind of red-pilled, but then afraid, and then upset, and then red-pilled more, and then and afraid again, and he's back and forth, and finally, here at the end, he has to leave Brave New World, and he kind of calms down. He learns from Helmholtz, his friend, and he kind of is more calm, and kind of, he does see Maybe this is a good thing. Maybe he will find a better life away from Brave New World. So he kind of lets go of his fear, finally at the end. So that's a nice little ending for Bernard. It's not so bad. Helmholtz has maybe the best ending because he's actually quite happy about leaving. He sees it as potentially very positive, and he's looking forward to it. So Helmholtz, maybe we could even say that Helmholtz, even though he's not fully red-pilled, he probably is the most balanced at the end, where he's been quite red-pilled. He sees a lot of the truth. He understands it. And he's not so afraid. He's not so angry. So he's not so bad. But poor John, we see... I see this with John. I see John as the warning. I see John as the warning of black pill. This is what happens when you see only the bad side of the truth and you become filled with anger, filled with depression, filled with hopelessness, filled with guilt, and it destroys you. And that's what happens to John. So John, he decides, I'm going to go leave. I want to hide, get outside of London. I'm going to hide, get away from Brave New World. But so he leaves, but what does he do? Is he happy? No, he beats himself. He hits himself with a whip. he's fasting, but he's not fasting, to feel good or to wake up or to be healthy. He's fasting like to punish himself, and he's hitting himself to punish himself because his sexual feelings about Lenina. So he's trying to beat himself and just destroy his desires, right? He's at war with himself. He's full of anger and hatred and all this stuff and fear and hopelessness. So this is a bad path. This black-pilled path of hopelessness is a terrible path. What happens? He wants to just get away, but of course, all the people, they come, the reporters, the fake news media, they have it in Brave New World too, these fake news bastards. CNN comes and the BBC comes, and they start harassing him. They start filming him and following him, watching him do all this crazy stuff, right? Beating himself and everything. And he gets this big crowd of people comes. Then Lenina comes, and we see a bad ending with Lenina. She's like just in love with John now. She can't understand these feelings she has. She's, for the first time in her life, she actually has this feeling of almost like love for John because John has rejected her. And John gets really angry because Lenina is trying to, jump on him, wants to have sex with him. And he wants to hit her. And then suddenly a big riot happens again. So he becomes kind of violent. And then all the crowd, they all start fighting. And then they all start taking soma. And they have this big orgy where everybody starts having sex with everybody. The next day, John wakes up. And John realizes, oh my God, what happened? What did I do? I took the soma drug. I had sex with Lenina, and I joined in with all this horrible stuff with Brave New World. He feels guilty. He hates himself. He's full of anger, and he kills himself. Suicide. He kills himself. And that's the depressing ending of the book. Yeah, it's pretty sad ending. It's pretty horrible. So we can kind of see this idea of self-punishment, beating yourself up. Somebody asked me yesterday about guilt. I feel guilt. Someone said in a comment yesterday, I feel guilty about, I have a better life than some poor people. And I said, don't be careful. That's a bad path. Well, this kind of shows the extreme example of that when you start to hate yourself, it leads to a bad place. So hating yourself is not good. Getting filled with anger and hopelessness is terrible. You'll destroy yourself. That's the message here, that will lead to self-destruction. It's not a good choice. It's the choice that a lot of people make, right? Because we have the evil choice of Brave New World, but then some people, they wake up to that, but then they choose all this anger and hatred and guilt and hopelessness, and they destroy themselves. So both paths are evil and bad. They're not good. All right, and I think that, it's unfortunately, the ending of the book is pretty hopeless. I'd say the only hope really is for for Helmholtz and Bernard. We have a little hope there, maybe. Little hope for Bernard and Helmholtz that maybe they are going to have more of a middle way where they're going to off to this island, the Falkland Islands. They will be away from Brave New World, maybe have some more freedom, but they're not destroying themselves. They're more calm. They're not full of fear. So maybe that's the most hopeful. Those are the two most hopeful characters at the end. John's a disaster. Lenina's a disaster. Brave New World is a disaster. And that's it. That is the ending. Now, Aldous Huxley does not give us a happy solution. So again, we have to read this book kind of like Animal Farm. Animal Farm also ends badly. The pigs are in control. They're just like the old boss, right? Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Famous line from a song. Well, that's Animal Farm. That's how it ends. The animals are slaves, and the pigs are their masters. This one ends. Brave New World is still there. Mond and the controllers are in control. John becomes black-pilled, full of hopelessness and anger and guilt. He kills himself. Lenina is hopeless, can't wake up. So he doesn't show us a way. He does not show us any way. So it's just a warning. We have to find our own way. Aldous Huxley's not going to give it to us. So we have to find it ourselves. And I believe, that's why I've been talking about these other topics this week of truth and goodness and beauty, because that is the way. That is the way. The way of truth and goodness and beauty, the way of natural law or dharma. That's the way. That's how we become awake and red-pilled, but then we become white-pilled, we could say in slang. In other words, we see the truth, but we have hope. We see the truth, but we have goodness and happiness. We see the truth, and we are stronger and better. We have to focus, not see the ugliness, but then we go beyond and we focus on truth and goodness and beauty. That's why it's important. Simple things like, focusing on making a strong family. This is one of the most important things you can do is, getting married and having children and raising your children and homeschooling them if you can and teaching them natural law and goodness. That's one of the most important things you can do to fight Brave New World. And reading the great books and the old books to see truth, but also goodness and beauty. So we need all three. The big truth, the big goodness, the big beauty. And then as you get stronger, you and I and we can begin to fight back against Brave New World. But we've got to do it from our own strength. John's coming from weakness, and it destroys him. So it's kind of a terrible warning, but there it is. All right, let's go to the comments and questions. Okay, let's see. Okay. Yeah, Vanu says, it's very difficult to live with people who focus only on negative things. It's quite boring. Well, it is. It becomes quite depressing. Alamin Ali says, Brave New World is always horrible. It makes people crazy as well. It gets them far from their relatives. Yes. Remember that in the book that destroying marriage and family was one of their first and biggest goals. It's always one of the goals of the world controllers, which we see now. That are doing exactly the same in the media, and they've been doing it since at least the 60s, maybe the 50s, is doing everything they can to destroy families. Well, it's an interesting question. Al says, Huxley didn't answer how to find a way out. To not be hopeless. Maybe he did it to demoralize readers, program people to be a victim. I don't know. I don't know why he did that. From his later writings, I think maybe not. I think he was just doing as a warning, and it just, he did, I think in a later interview, he did say that he actually wished he had given John another path. And if you look at Aldous Huxley's life, actually, that later in his life, because he wrote Brave New World, he was pretty young. And later in his life, he focused a lot on religion and God. And he wrote a great book, a fantastic book called The Perennial Philosophy. The Perennial Philosophy, which is about, basically it's about natural law, where he's finding Dharma, he's finding natural law, God, in all these different religions. So he's looking at Islam and Christianity and Sanatana Dharma and Buddhism. Those four mostly, occasionally some others, but especially those four, and showing the similarities between them. Of course, they have differences and they argue about things, but there are also some very big similarities that we might call natural law or Dharma, and he was very much focused on that. So Huxley himself rejected Brave New World as he got older and turned towards spirituality and God. So that I know. And it's a very good book, by the way. The Perennial Philosophy that he wrote later in his life is wonderful. And if you want a white pill, in fact, I would say that's Huxley's white pill. So when he was young, he gave us Brave New World, which is pretty much a black pill, pretty depressing, and a red pill. But later in his life, he wrote The Perennial Philosophy, which I think is his answer. I think The Perennial Philosophy is his answer to how to get out of Brave New World. What is the answer? The positive answer to Brave New World. And it's in his book, The Perennial Philosophy, which is excellent. It's a little difficult vocabulary, probably a bit difficult, just to warn you, but it's a very nice book. I've got it. In fact, I got it right over there. Yeah, like Lisa says, and this is another nice point, John was faced with modern depravity. Nice word. He was unprotected. He had no self-confident arguments that can convince. He couldn't cope with his uniqueness. There was no other solution for him. He had to go. Right. And so this is what I've talked about this when we talked about homeschooling, when we've talked about kids, cell phones, things like that. That you have to be careful, because on one hand, you have to protect them when they're young. You have to protect them from this stuff. But you can't shelter them. To shelter means to protect them too much. It means as they get older, let's say teenage years, it actually does not help them to completely protect them from everything, to hide it all from them. Why not? Because then, like John was totally protected from Brave New World, and then suddenly, bam, 100%, he's in Brave New World, and all of this stuff hitting him suddenly. He was not prepared. He was not strong enough to deal with it, the evil, the terribleness. So, like say with kids, when they start getting into the teenage years, you actually need to show them Brave New World, expose them, but not just show them, explain it, train them, prepare them for it. So when they become adults, they already know about it. They can look at a movie, they see the hidden messages. They look at an advertisement, they see the messages. They understand all of this stuff. They know why. So they're ready, they're strong. You've got to make them strong so they're ready for the evil. Okay, because evil is strong and it will attack. So just hiding from evil forever is very dangerous, because eventually evil finds us and then we have to fight. So we have to be strong, and we have to train ourselves to be strong, and eventually train our children to be ready to fight it. Okay, I'm just gonna, you guys are typing quickly now. Oh yeah, right. So Vladislav's talking about kind of the sequel, not really, but I read 30 years later, Huxley wrote another book about how the world had become like Brave New World. Okay, it's called Brave New World Revisited. Brave New World Revisited. Now, this is not a fiction story. It's just interviews with Huxley. And in it, Huxley basically says, 30 years after he wrote it, so this would be like in the 1950s, I think, maybe early 60s, Huxley was saying, basically, it's all happening. It's all happening. Everything I predicted in the book is now happening. And of course, today, it's here. We live in Brave New World 100%. You're living in it right now. Yes, he saw it. He saw it in his own lifetime. He saw it become reality. Yeah, like Marjan's correct. Helmholtz turned out to be the most positive character in the book. He did. The one who woke up the most, not counting John, who wasn't born in Brave New World. Bernard is a disappointment for me. Bernard was a disappointment. He kind of was. We kind of thought in the beginning that maybe Bernard would wake up the most. And he kind of did, but we see what the problem with fear and weakness. And this is Bernard's problem. He's weak. He's weak. And he doesn't make himself stronger. It's okay to be weak. Okay? Some of us start off weaker than others, but he does not become much stronger. A little stronger. At the end, he's more calm. He accepts what is happening to him. At the very end, we do see a bit of a change with Bernard, which is positive. But yeah, it's not great. But Helmholtz is the one probably who does wake up the most and has the most positive awakening, who becomes at least somewhat awake and red-pilled, but not hopeless, and actually kind of positive about it, which is nice. Yeah, like Fernanda says, we have to start with little changes in order to deal with Brave New World. Changes around us. Do our best. Like the tiny spider in the story that you were telling us. Do our part. Yes, that's right. That's right. You just got to start in your own life, little by little, step by step. Just what Stephen Covey taught us in the 7 Habits book. Focus on yourself. You don't become, like if you want it, let's say you're my size. Okay? You're my size. You can see if you're watching it on video. I'm not super muscular, right? So let's imagine I want to be a power lifter, right? And become really strong. It doesn't happen in one day. I would have to go to the gym. I mean, at my age, especially, it would take a long time. And I would have to work and work and work, and little by little get stronger and stronger and stronger. And so this is true mentally and psychologically and spiritually, that we have to train and work. Even in the Matrix, everything happens very fast in the movie, but still Neo has to train. He has to learn all these skills, and he gets stronger as the movie goes. So, exactly. You don't see, this is the other problem. Like with John, he expects to be perfect immediately, right? He's been away. He's never been in this kind of terrible world before. Suddenly he's in it. And all these, all these women trying to have sex with him and all this crazy stuff. And he doesn't resist every time. He's not perfect. And so then he feels guilty and he just hates himself. So you can't do that. Okay? You're going to have mistakes. Sometimes you're going to be tempted sometimes to make the wrong choice. But step by step, you keep working to become stronger and better and more virtuous. And little by little, you do it. So it's a good point. Fernanda, very nice. Yeah, like Maria says, the story shows us Brave New World would continue to break into our lives. Yeah, they won't leave you alone. They will not leave you alone. Don't think you can hide from it. That is an excellent point, Maria. So, that's another mistake that John made. He thought, I'll leave London, I'll go outside and hide from them all, and they'll leave me alone. They will not. The evil will not leave you alone. Brave New World will not. They cannot stand to see somebody living a simple, happy, virtuous life. I mean, this is why right now we're seeing all the attacks in the media and social media trying to ban and block anyone who disagrees with Brave New World. They hate it. They can't just leave you alone. So don't think that. You're going to have to make yourself stronger, but you must accept that you will need to fight them. This is a war, a spiritual war, and you're in it. So it doesn't matter if you like it or not, because they are going to attack you. Be ready. Make yourself stronger. Strange noise outside. Yeah, like Bakir says, this is why God and family are very important. There's something in life you can face it alone. Yes, this is your foundation of strength. Absolutely. Truth, beauty, and goodness are a good place to start. Yeah, Sophia, like Sophia says, I bet Bernard is in a better place now where there are normal people with normal lives. Yeah, in fact, that's what I'm saying, that in many ways, Bernard and Helmholtz have the happiest ending. They actually escape from Brave New World. They get out. It's a punishment. Like they think it's a punishment. Bernard kind of thinks it's a punishment, and Mon, the controller, thinks it's a punishment. But Helmholtz realizes that it's actually an opportunity. Well, that's a good point, too. Aradhyana says, this book gives us the idea that no one can change the world alone. Also true. True indeed. Well, that's a hard question. I've got a question. How do you get through a marriage problem-free? My cousin recently tied the knot, which means get married. That's slang. Nice. And now he resents his wife because she always has a short fuse. Tell him to read the Rational Male books. Start there. My answer is usually choose well. Choose carefully. Choose who you marry very, very carefully. That's the secret that's my secret. I married a really good one. Really good person. And so I don't have these problems. But the other thing is that nowadays I'd say there's bugs out there hitting my window. That in a lot of marriages now that the men are too weak. Your cousin sounds like he's too weak. He should not let his wife act like that. He should not accept that behavior from her. That's my answer. So he needs to learn how to not accept that behavior. So she understands that it's not acceptable. Yeah, I mean, Shad could be right about this. I think the writer, Huxley, did not know the solution to all the problems that he mentioned in the book. That's why he did not tell us about it. He left it ambiguous. It could be he was fairly young when he wrote the book, and he saw the plans of the elite, the rich, the super rich, the bankers and the upper class of England. And maybe he didn't know how to go against it. Like I said, later in his life, he did. Later in his life, he wrote The Perennial Philosophy. He wrote a few other books on these topics, but that's probably the best one. So he actually did later. Yeah, Ripsame, perfect example. Brave New World is like Sodom and Gomorrah in the past. That's an excellent point. That is right. Which again shows that while the technology is new, the drugs, the soma, the computer screens, the cell phones, the idea of uncontrolled pleasure, evil using uncontrolled pleasure to control people, to destroy people. It's very old. It's right there in the Bible, right? Sodom and Gomorrah. What happened to Sodom and Gomorrah? What happened to it at the end? Probably what's going to happen to our societies, in some way or another. They can't continue forever because they're against truth. They're against reality. And this does not end well, usually. The Bible warned us of this, and no one's listening. Yeah, Sarah says, I have a brother. He looks like John. He's kind of like John. He's black-pilled, always hopeless and complaining, never sees the positive part in his life. Yeah, it's a very dangerous path. It's very, 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 very dangerous. Now, of course, we need both. Some people kind of they want to hide from the truth and just say, oh, everything's wonderful, everything's wonderful, everything's wonderful, and it's not. And that's also, that's just, that's the blue pill. That's what we call blue pill. These pill metaphors, these pill slang comes from the Matrix. So blue pill is the people who are clueless, right? They're clueless to the truth. They just believe all the lies. But the lies are pretty. It's just pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. Well, we know that's bad. And it eventually leads to great unhappiness. But then, seeing the truth, but only the bad part, only the evil, and becoming super depressed, we also see how that's terrible. We see this with John in Brave New World. We see it with Cypher in the Matrix movie. It's not good. I thought the government should do something to help people be happier with each other, but Aldous Huxley shows how dangerous it is to let government regulate happiness. Yeah, government is part of the evil. Government is controlled. It's their way. It's, government and big money together are the controllers. They are the source of evil. Don't expect them to save you. They will not. Yeah, like Afaf says, this is going back to Stephen Covey, 7 Habits. Begin changing ourselves and then our families. And that is exactly right. It's very simple. You focus again, like Covey's talked about in that book, that if you focus on your circle of control, that's yourself. That's where you have the most control, your own mind and body. That's where you have the most power. And you can do amazing things with yourself. And then after that, then what do you focus on? He calls it your circle of influence. So it's other people, but not everybody, not the whole world. It's other people that you have some connection to, that you can influence, that you can help, that you have some kind of social connection to. Your family and your close friends would be the main ones. Maybe your coworkers, maybe some others. Okay, but not the whole world. You're not going to save the whole world. Not yourself, not alone, okay? But you can do great good by focusing on yourself and your family and your community and your circle of influence where you really have some power, some influence. That's where you focus. And then when a lot of us do that, then the world does get changed. Is it depression that kills John? It's like depression and self-hatred. He hates himself. Why? Because he did not resist Brave New World completely. So he kills himself, punishes himself, and he has no hope. It's hopelessness. Hopelessness kills him. Yeah, like Vong says, to resist the brainwashing of the media, we need to be very strong. And sometimes we get lost like John. We do. Sometimes you get lost. Sometimes you fail. Sometimes you make a mistake. Don't become depressed and hate yourself. Just learn and get stronger and improve. And then keep going. Keep going. Yeah, like this is a good point, Ozma says. Neo in the Matrix was lucky. He had Morpheus to show him the truth and training him to fight. But Bernard wakes up, but he's still weak. And he's expected to be calm and hide from fighting. Right, that is a good example. It's a very good point, that Neo has help. It shows you, doesn't it, the importance. It's a good example because it does show the importance of helping someone. And say you can be Morpheus for another person, right? And I can be, and we all can be, because it is hard when you wake up alone. I mean, I just woke up alone. No one helped me, really, and it took many years. And it's a hard process to try to do it all by yourself. And yes, you feel angry and you feel afraid and you feel all these things. And if no one's there helping you, no one's guiding you, you feel isolated, then it's easy to be like Bernard and kind of weak. Or it's easy to be like John and become hopeless. And so, yes, that is an excellent point that Neo is very lucky in the movie, The Matrix, because Neo has Morpheus from the beginning. He has a guide, he has a guru, he has a coach who shows him the truth, but guides him and helps him so he doesn't become hopeless, helps him train and become stronger, gives him confidence. See, and this shows the power of positive, good leadership. And each of us can do this. See, we can do this in someone else's life. Maybe it's the life of your children. You can do this for your children. You can do this for your family, for friends, for people you meet online. You can do this. You can be like Morpheus so that when someone wakes up, they feel they have some support. They have some hope. They have a path to follow. This is what I'm trying to do. So we can all do this. It's a very good point, Esma. Okay. Everyone is happy until death with blue pill. On the other hand, a person is depressed and miserable with red pill, confused what's good. They're not really, though. They're not really happy. They're childish and they're not happy. They have pleasure but not true happiness. That's the difference, right? Pleasure is, just a physical feeling, mostly. So we can see, like Lenina. Lenina's not happy in this thing. She can't handle it. She has no feeling of love. When she finally does start to feel love, she feels completely miserable. Everybody else has empty minds. They're like children, emotionally like children or like animals. So it's not exactly, the blue pill's not a very happy. We can see this in our world now. Blue pill people are not happy. They're pretty sad and pathetic. And again, the red pill, you do not have to be miserable. John is miserable, but that's my message again and again, I keep saying, is that he's a warning. Because there is a way to see the truth, but not be miserable. Yeah, well, Saba says, if we want to change ourselves, we can, of course, but we cannot change others. It's hard. Well, you can't. Well, right, because everyone else is free also. Everyone else. This is why, it's evil to try to force people to change. It's evil. They have free will. It's their choice. Finally, their choice. And yes, they may choose badly. They may choose to believe the lies. They may choose to be weak. They may choose pleasure and addiction. And many times they do. And yeah, it sucks. It sucks to see someone, if you care about them, it's hard to see that. But ultimately, it's their life and their choice. That is right. That is right. And it is hard sometimes. But only you have the power over yourself, finally. You can influence, you can help if they want it. But if they don't want it, there's nothing you can do. Okay. Sriracha likes my glasses. I like your glasses. Thank you. I love your advice. Must be strong and focus on positive thinking. Thanks so much. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Is the author of the book Aldous Huxley? Yes, that is correct. Good point. Benais Bonos says, I think the author gives us the solution in an indirect way. The solutions are what the controllers prevent people from doing. That's exactly right. This is an important point. If indirectly, if you read the book carefully, you will see exactly what to do. You do the opposite. All the things that the controllers prevent or deny or hate or try to destroy or attack, all the things they attack, that's what you do, because that's what they fear. That's where your power is. So, reading old books, they ban the old books. You can't read Shakespeare. You can't read the Bible in Brave New World. So what should you do? Do the opposite. Read the old books. Read religious books. Belief in God. Find your faith. Family. Building a family. Having a strong family. Having a large family. Connecting with all of your family. Do that. See, all these things that we see that they hate, that they're trying to destroy, and they're doing it right now too. What are they trying to destroy? Marriage, through the divorce and all that. They're trying to destroy families now. They're attacking children. They want sex with children. All these things. So you do the opposite, and it does give you a pretty good idea of how to fight them. They focus on lies. So what do? Tell the truth without fear. They want to destroy family. What do? Create a big, strong family. Right? Good points. Excellent. That is exactly right. These are simple and powerful things you can do. And you're right. The answer is right there in the book, isn't it? It is in the book. It's the opposite of Brave New World. We can see. Was Brave New World conspiracy theory? Well, it's reality now. Maybe they thought it was then. When he wrote it, people probably said, this is crazy. And here we are. It's just amazing to me how accurate he was. And it shows me that he really did know their plans, because it all came true. Anna Maria says, when you understand what happened, sometimes it's too late. Evil can appear in weaker moments in our life when we're not able to quickly react. Yeah, it's true, but you still always have a choice. So even if maybe evil's very good at lying and deceiving and tricking you, and maybe you get tricked, but then eventually you wake up, and when you wake up, you have to do what's right. And you have to fight back, and you have to change, you have to do what is good. And sometimes it's hard. But eventually you wake up. All right, a couple more and then time to go. Yeah, like Ibrahim Ali says, it's hard to be isolated and not have a mentor or coach to guide you, but it is possible. It is possible. It's possible to wake up by yourself, by searching for the truth, and mostly to have faith. All of that is correct. You can still do it. You don't have to have a coach. You can do it yourself. Okay, I think we're about done. All right. So there we go. Another book finished. We did it. All right, we finished a book, not an easy book. Not an easy book. The English is not easy. And the ideas are pretty serious and not easy. And we did it. So congratulations for another successful book club. Very good one. Excellent book. I mean, a very, very, very important book. That's why I chose it. Very important. And I think that we all need to understand the messages in Brave New World that Huxley was giving us, because we live in it now. It's now reality, right? Brave New World is reality. Maybe we don't have flying cars yet, but it's 90% reality now. So it's good to understand your enemy, understand their plans. So that's, know your enemy and know yourself, and you will win 1,000 battles. That's Sun Tzu in The Art of War. So you have to know the enemy. You have to know them. Know the evil and how they think and what they're doing. It's part of it, but it's not the only part, because you also have to know yourself. You have to know truth, goodness, and beauty too. So as we move forward, we're going to focus more now on the positive side. We don't want to become like John. As usual, we will take a couple of weeks break in between books, kind of let your mind kind of think about Brave New World. Some of you maybe need to finish the book. Some people need to catch up with the videos. That's all fine. And then our next book will be nonfiction. Our next book is about money. It's a very practical book, our next book. It's called Your Money or Your Life. Your Money or Your Life. Now, it's important to choose the correct writers, because this title, I guess there are a few books with the same title. So it's Your Money or Your Life. The writers are Vicki Robin and Joe Dominguez. Two writers. Vicki Robin and Joe Dominguez. Your Money or Your Life. What's the next book about? It's about financial freedom. It's a really good book. I used myself to become financially free. I used this book myself. I followed the strategies in the book. In fact, I found these strategies to be excellent, and they worked very, very well for me. They work for people who are not rich. You don't have to be rich. Rich Dad, Poor Dad was about becoming financially free and making a lot more money, and it's also very good. But this book is more about living a simple life, cutting your expenses, and becoming financially free even with a small income. Even with a small income, you can become financially free. And in our world, financial freedom is very important. It's hard. If you're not financially free, you're not very free, right? Because most of the slavery in our world today, the most common kind of slavery, is wage slavery, work slavery, money slavery. So when you become financially free, you have a much more free and enjoyable and more relaxed and less stressful life. So these are all the benefits that we will learn about in Your Money or Your Life, and we'll learn how to achieve that. How do you actually do it? And very specifically, how do you do it? All right, so thank you. As always, thanks for joining the book club. I had a great time. This was a great book. This was a serious book. Probably my favorite book so far. My favorite book, even though it's depressing at the end. But in terms of the ideas, in terms of the importance of the book to our world now, I think this is the most powerful book we've read so far, my opinion. The others are also great. All right, join the Gab group, gab.com, AJ Hogue. Tomorrow, we have our movie club lesson. We continue with The Matrix. So tomorrow, Neo will be going to see the Oracle. Tomorrow, we have some nice famous scenes, again, from the movie, where they go back into the Matrix, and we'll see. You'll see. So tomorrow, movie club, learn more with movies tomorrow. Lots of love to you. Join my VIP program at effortlessenglishclub.com, effortlessenglishclub.com. Commit, don't quit.